Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. All right, James, California said Lei is fixing her lipstick. Actually, Lei went to get a cup of water. I think I may need it because my voice sounds a little off today. All right, how do I sound? Okay, acceptable? Yeah? All right, okay. Well, I set out to give you an update on China's economy and its mounting debt crisis. But along the way, I stumbled across something that proved my earlier assessments. Um, I discovered evidence that China may be missing 1 billion people. I'll show you that in the second half of this program. But first, let's take a closer look at the state of China's economy. Um, So let me give you my conclusion up front, but I don't want to keep you in suspense. If you think China's economy is bad, its debt crisis is more severe, its population collapse is catastrophic. And when you combine the two, meaning the debt crisis and the population collapse, the consequences, in my opinion, are unlike anything human civilization has ever seen. All right, so let me first start by talking about China's economy. My voice sounds very strange. All right. Very suspenseful, very dramatic. All right. On July 15th, China's National Bureau of Statistics proudly announced that the GDP grew 5.3% in the first half of the year, beating the official target of about 5%. The internet response? Pure sarcasm. One user said, Chinese user, he said, "What an inspiring way to start my day. The Stats Bureau must be working overnight to make these numbers happen." But the post that really went viral was dripping with irony. It says this. It says, "This is such wonderful news. I was thrilled about our booming economy. I couldn't sleep a wink. Ended up uh, ended up chewing on 2 stale corn buns, and washing them down with a vintage bottle of 1982 tap water. Truly overwhelmed with happiness. Honestly, I found the vintage 1982 tap water funny." All right, so some still say China's economy is too big to fail. I think it's too hollow to stand. It's already full of cracks. And while it's hard to measure each crack, we can tell how bad things are by how desperate people have become. I have told you about China's auto industry. Its EV makers are slashing prices in a race to the bottom. And it's not competition anymore, it's self-destruction. And now that same desperation has spread to food. Yes, food. With spending down in every other category, food is one of the last things people still shout out for. And now even that's a war zone. China's major food delivery platforms, Meituan, Alibaba, JD, have launched a brutal subsidy war, calling for 0 yuan meals or deep discounts. And they offer coupons like spend 18 yuan and save 22. All right. Of course, orders exploded. But guess who's paying the price? Merchants and restaurant owners. One tea shop owner said he worked late into the night and earned almost nothing. A rice noodle vendor said after fees and commissions, she made less than 1 yuan per order. Some shops had to throw out free drinks because no one even show up to pick them up. These platforms don't care about food delivery profits. What they want is traffic. Users they can redirect to more profitable businesses like e-commerce and travel. But the consumers aren't loyal. They're not there for food. They're there for the freed drinks and freed food. And when the discounts disappear, so will they. Now, this kind of involution isn't limited to online. Even five-star hotels in Zhengzhou now set up a street food stall. Top chefs, bargain prices, selling on the sidewalk. And the hotel managers shrug off the loss of prestige by saying, how much is face really worth? So to me, China's economy or China's economic mess boils down to two massive crises: debt and population or demographics. The financial system is buried in debt and can't fund a real recovery. And with a massive population decline, the gap between expectations and reality is growing fast. When you lose this many people, even a manageable debt becomes crushing, right? So today I want to break down China's twin ticking time bombs, debt and population. Actually, I think both have detonated. So let me start with the numbers. China's, hold on, where are my numbers? My numbers are disappearing on me. Oh, here we go. There they are. Oh, I don't know why this is taking so long. Anyways, I only have a few slides, but they are important. But anyways, it takes a while to upload. This is interesting. Anyways, let me talk while it's loading. So China's on-balance sheet loan total stands at 270 trillion yuan. And that includes government, corporate, and personal loans. And this number comes straight from the central bank's credit balance sheet as of May 2025. And it covers government, corporate, and personal loans. And then add to that is 185 trillion yuan in direct bond market debt. That includes government bonds, local government bonds, and corporate bonds. And this number came from the central bank's April report. So if you add them up, it shows that China has a total social debt or society debt. I don't know how you call that, maybe social debt, at 455 trillion yuan. And this number excludes the underground lending and shadow banking. Actually, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 455 trillion yuan. And this number is real. So now let's do the math. Even assuming a low interest rate of just 3%, China would need to pay about 13.5 trillion yuan in interest payment every year. Just interest, no principal. And China's official GDP for 2024 was 135 trillion yuan, meaning 10% of the economy goes just to interest payments. But here's the problem. That GDP number is inflated. I've covered this before in my programs. China's actual GDP could be 50% or even 67% lower than reported. So if we use a more realistic baseline, right? So let's say if we normalize China's GDP, make this bigger. If we normalize China's GDP by cutting it in half, then 20% of China's real GDP goes to purely paying interest. Think about it. 1/5 of the actual wealth China produces every year is eaten up by interest payments alone. And it's not like the collateral backing this debt is strong. Asset prices in China are falling, and many forms of collateral, like local government financing assets or real estate, um, are liquid, are not liquid, or worthless. So China's total wealth is shrinking, but its debt is still growing and growing very fast. And estimated an annual 7%. So China's debt is growing at 7%. So if you apply the 7% to the 455 trillion, that's another 30 trillion yuan in new debt that will be added by the end of this year. It's far outpacing the official GDP growth of 5%. And most of the new debt is government borrowing, right? Because Chinese government's fiscal deficit is expected to hit 10% of GDP in 2025, and it will exceed 12 trillion yuan. So, so you wonder why China's debt, or why the debt is growing so fast, why the debt is growing faster than the GDP growth. I mean, first of all, I don't believe there's any GDP growth, but the debt is growing for real. And some experts believe this soaring debt growth rate reflects persistently high corruption costs. That's the cost of Chinese corruption. And who's borrowing? Who's still borrowing? The government and state-owned enterprises, which are the most inefficient parts of the economy. Meanwhile, household consumption and private sector activity have flatlined. Now, there's another layer of risk, that is the financial sector itself. I want to show you another number. Yeah. So total liabilities of China's financial institutions have now hit 500 trillion yuan. And that includes commercial banks, trusts, insurance companies, security firms, asset managers. Of course, it also includes a huge amount of interbank debt. But think about it, the 500 trillion yuan in financial sector liabilities, it's higher than the 455 trillion in total societal debt. It's a sign of just how bloated and over-leveraged China's financial system has become. And it's 390% of China's official GDP. Now, for context, I want you to compare that to the US. Can you see? Is that too small? Maybe let me make this bigger. All right, so yeah, this is better. So for context, US total debt is about 100 trillion US dollars. US financial sector liabilities is between 35 to 45 trillion dollars. So you see, it's about 35 to 45% of US total societal debt. And it's only about 170% of US GDP. Whereas in China, the total financial sector liability, it exceeds total societal debt, and it's 390% of GDP. So now we know that China's GDP is inflated. So if we have China's inflated GDP, its financial sector debt explodes to about 780% of real GDP. And that's unthinkable. So in short, China's financial system is highly leveraged and dangerously fragile. It's under massive strain and simply cannot fund any real economic growth anymore. And if you think this is already a disaster, it gets worse. And here's why. China's population is collapsing because you need people to pay back debt. I mean, the debt will not pay back. The debts will not pay back by itself. You need people, right, to generate, to get the real economy going before you can pay back the debt. So a shrinking population means a shrinking economy. Fewer workers, fewer consumers. Um, there's no way fewer. I mean, there's no way that they could carry this mountain of debt. The debt burden will keep growing, but the base that's supposed to support it, that's China's people, is rapidly disappearing. That's what I said. This crisis, the debt crisis combined with the population crisis, is unheard of in human in human history. So eventually, this debt won't just pressure the economy; it will crush the shrinking population left behind. So that brings us to the next topic. What is China's real population? Now, for those of you who have followed my channel for a while, you know that I've said it many times. China's real population is not anywhere close to 1.4 billion. It's overstated by nearly a billion people. It's somewhere between 300 and 500 million. And I based that estimate on two key assumptions. One, China never actually reached 1.4 billion people before the pandemic. The real number was closer to 800 million. And then two, COVID caused catastrophic losses, likely in the hundreds of millions. And just today, I came across a government slide and some media reports that indirectly confirmed my estimates. I mean, I was shocked. So the first evidence came from China's Ministry of Education. Let me show you the chart. Where is that? Oh, here we go. Let me make this bigger. All right, here we go. Okay, I discovered this chart. This chart shows the number of primary schools in China from 2000 to 2023. What do we see? A steady collapse. Officially, China's population grew from 1.26 billion in 2000 to 1.4 billion in 2023. A gain of 140 million people in 23 years, and that's 11% increase. So why, during the same period, did China lose 74% or 410,000 primary schools, right? If you look at the chart, if you look at the numbers, I don't know if you can read the numbers, they're a little small. So in 2000, China had 553,600 primary schools. By 2023, only 143,000 remained. And that's a staggering 74% decrease in 23 years. Yes, most closures, according to the ministry, happened in rural areas. But still, what kind of country loses 3/4 of its elementary schools while its population grows 11%? It makes no sense, unless the population didn't grow at all. In fact, it declined. That chart likely mirrors a real gradual population decline starting around 2000, which is why I still stand by my claim that China's real population in 2019 was closer to 800 million before COVID hit. Let me give you an example to illustrate the drastic population decline on the ground. So in just the first half of 2023, do I have a chart for that? No, I don't. Okay, so in the first half of 2023, 20 primary schools in Quanzhou, Fujian province announced closure, and another 50 in the city may soon follow. Now, Quanzhou's population, I checked, is 8.83 million in the metropolitan area. Now, that's about the same as New York City. Now, imagine 72 elementary schools closing in New York City in a single year. It would be front page news. The same goes to London, right? The same goes for London, which has similar population as Quanzhou, I think London has what, 8.8 million population. So the closing or the closure of 72 elementary schools in 1 year, that's unthinkable unless the city has suffered a massive demographic collapse. And it's not just Fujian. The above numbers are all came from official Chinese media. Yeah, all the numbers. Sorry, where did it go? All the numbers I'm quoting you came from either official statistics or state media, which most likely quoted official statistics. And so it's not just Fujian. The worst school closures are in northeastern China. Heilongjiang province lost nearly 60% of its primary schools between 2013 and 2022. Jilin lost nearly 50%, totaling 2,600 closures. Liaoning shut down more than 2,200 primary schools, a decline of almost 50%. So in 10 years, China's Northeast closed half of its elementary schools. And this was even before COVID hit. This was from 2013 to 2022. So if it's not a population decline, what is it? Right? And even in major city like Shanghai, it's happening. Since the start of 2025, Chinese media has said that 6 districts have closed 4 primary schools and 12 kindergartens. So these numbers are from official Chinese sources, and they're hard to dispute. Now, while primary school collapse reveals the long-term population decline that started way before COVID, the kindergarten data give us clues about COVID casualties. Now, let's talk about the kindergarten statistics. So according to the Chinese financial magazine, Caijing, experts estimate that 26,000 kindergartens may shut down in 2025. China's Ministry of Education reported that 21,100 kindergartens already closed in 2024. And between 2022 and 2024, the number of Chinese kindergartens dropped by 41,500, which was a 14% decrease. Here we go. I gave you the text. These are the quotes. Now, that's the official Chinese statistics. So the 14% is only from 2022 to 2024. So what I did is I factor in the estimated closure of 2025. So I calculated how much, what is the percentage of decrease between the 4 years from 2022 to 2025 in China, right? By using all of these numbers, and it's a 23% drop. So China's total kindergartens will drop by 23% by the end of this year, since 2022. Now, the kindergartens that remain open are shrinking too. The average size fell from 180 children in 2017 to 141 in 2024, a 22% drop. Now, let's be conservative. Assume there was no growth from 2017 to 2022, right? Because the number I just gave you, it was a 7-year number. It was from 2017 to 2024. What I really need is the drop from 2022 to 2025. So they're not apple-to-apple comparison, but let's make some very conservative assumptions. So let's assume that there was no growth from 2017 to 2022. And the trend holds steady from 2024 to 2025. That still give us a 22% drop in average size over those 4 years. So then I asked AI, I mean, this is a mathematical question. If the number of kindergartens shrink by 23% and their average size dropped by 22% over 4 years. What is the total drop in preschool population during that period? The answer is it's a 40% decline in preschoolers between 2022 and 2025. And keep in mind, those are conservative assumptions. Now, here's a real world example. Chinese media interviewed a Miss Chen Ling, who used to run 3 kindergartens. She closed one in 23 and another one in 24, both due to a lack of students. And the last one is struggling. So she said in 2020 and 2021, enrollment was effortless. Parents came to her. She didn't need to do anything. 60 kids graduated, 60 new kids enrolled, and sometimes even more. And some of her classes were over capacity. But after 2023, she said things changed. Only 20 students enrolled to replace the 60 that graduated. Now, think about it. 2023, that's the moment the COVID generation was supposed to start daycare. Because in China, 90% of Chinese kids aged 3 to 6 attend daycare, right? I mean, some parents start early at age 2. So that drop-off isn't anecdotal, it's systemic. So Ms. Chen currently has 130 kids, but she said 60 will graduate and another 10 may leave. She expects only 60 returning students in the fall. And she said, if we can enroll just 20 new kids by September, we'll consider that a success. Now, that's a drop from 130 kids to 80, a 38% decline in 1 year for the daycare centers that remain open, that are not closed. So this is real and this is measurable, and it suggests that our earlier 40% estimate is still very conservative because we only used a 22% drop in the number of enrollments. And so I think the real drop in terms of the number of preschoolers in China right now could be as high as 50%, meaning that China has lost 50% children who are in that age group, 3 to 6, or 3 to 6, or even 2 to 6. So here's the big question: why? It can be explained as lifestyle choices, because 90% of Chinese kids go to daycare. People didn't suddenly stop having kids. I mean, this kind of drop, because it happened suddenly in 2023, right? She said 2020 and 2021 was no problem at all. It suddenly started in 2023. It cannot be lifestyle choices. I mean, there's no way just people all of a sudden just all decided not to have children. I mean, it's this kind of drop is it has to be a major demographic collapse. It's not a lifestyle choices. In fact, during lockdowns, couples had more time together at home. If anything, birth rates should have gone up. So a 40 to 50% collapse in the preschool population means something more severe. It could possibly mean that 40 to 50% of people of childbearing age are simply gone. It confirms what I've long argued, that China lost hundreds of millions of people during COVID. If China's real population was 800 million before COVID, then and it lost half of the population, or 40 to 50% of the population during the pandemic, the country's true population today is around 400 million. And that means the official population of 1.4 billion is off by 1 billion people. Case closed. What do you think? I didn't expect to to discover this today. I was going to give you a talk on China's economy. I think I did in the first half, but I accidentally discovered, proof that China is missing by 1 billion people. All right. Now, let me quickly tell you about my program released in Leisrealtalk. I spoke about the widespread belief that something dramatic is going to happen in July 2025. And this was the result of a prediction given by a manga artist by the name of Ryo Tazuki. She recently wrote a book called The Last Words of the Angel. And I thought it was a lot of information that are extremely um, interesting and insightful. I think it's an important video given that we've witnessed so many earthquakes in the past month. I mean, there are earthquakes in eastern part of Russia, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, in Japan, of course, and then in Alaska. Didn't we just see an earthquake in Alaska 2 days ago? And then Mount Rainier, is that Mount Rainier in Seattle or near Seattle has been erupting, right? It was a volcano. And then there's also earthquake in Argentina. Is it Argentina? No, Panama. And people have seen wild animals running in droves away from Yellowstone National Park. So all of that is spooky if you really think about it. I mean, all the places where we've seen volcanic eruptions or earthquakes are on the Pacific Ring of Fire, and so it matches, or they match with the prediction so closely. So, anyway, so that's why I made the video, and I thought it was actually a very moving story. I didn't read her book, but it was from the translation I read. I think it's very touching. So I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Chris, if you can copy the link, I'd appreciate it. All right, that's all. That's all I have. Let me see. Let me first thank the people who gave me super stickers. And here I see Chris. Excuse me. Oh, my voice. Did my voice come back? Yeah? All right. I saw a super sticker from Chris, Chris. Where did that go? Chris, we Vietnamese love you. Oh, okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I love Vietnam. I think Vietnamese food is one of my, I mean, other than Chinese food, I guess my other favorite Asian food is Vietnamese. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about Korean food or Thai food, which are very popular, or even Japanese food. I mean, I like Japanese food, but they're all very popular in the U.S. I would say of all the other Asian food, my favorite is Vietnamese food. Um, it's because it's very light. It's very light. Yeah. Anyways, thank you. All right, Chris. That's Chris. Thank you. Oh, there's another one from Chris. Good, nice. All right, thank you. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for the super stickers. All right. All right, is that all? Okay, let me take a few questions. All right. A lot of discussions. Sheila Jones. Please can a podcaster give you credit? Use show. I I'm not quite sure. So a podcaster gave me credit for what? For what I did? All right. Okay. Okay, here one. Drusilla, do you think that so many people died during COVID because China hid the truth, or was it on purpose to depopulate? I don't think it was on purpose. I really think it got out of control. But the regime, the top leaders certainly understand the harm that the virus could cause. Um, so that's why they were adamant about locking down. And precisely because they knew how many people died, they were so stubborn when it comes to lockdowns. Because we couldn't understand the lockdowns. If you look at the statistics, there were nothing. There was nothing in China that should make them so paranoid, right? So it makes sense because they knew exactly how deadly that was and how many people died, that they were so paranoid. They were so adamant about the lockdowns. Otherwise, things didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all. Okay. Peter, okay, so population or lack of would explain the CCP struggles to stimulate consumer spending almost amongst citizens. Yeah. So if economists and experts admit China's massive loss of population, then their projection of China's economy will completely change. It explained a lot of things. It explains the lack of the terrible car sales in China. I mean, almost all the commercial consumer activities were abysmal. I mean, there was just nothing, right? It's because there aren't that many people. Um, period. Here's a question from Evelyn. I assume China has debt, but they are collecting dollars from countries that owe China for infrastructure construction. Are they? I don't think so. Do you calculate for the influx of foreign debt payment? I do not think that China is collecting payments from developing countries for the Belt and Road projects. I think the Belt and Road make those countries terribly in debt. It also make Chinese banks suffer because they're not able to collect the payments. So it's lose-lose situation. Even if they were able to, I think the banks probably would redirect the funds somewhere else to keep them outside China. You know, here's a question from Jackie Gonzalez. You are a beautiful soul. Many blessings to you, and please keep doing what you are doing. Well, thank you. Thank you for the recognition. Ravi's interest, 1 billion missing will be a devastating, especially on defense and industrial force. Won't the government be worried and initiate emergency plans? What do you think? Yes, they are. They are very concerned. That's why they have menstruation police. They have grassroots officials, in the neighborhood, monitoring women's menstrual cycles and people's pregnancy. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's what's happening on the ground. They are very concerned. Someone said Lei deserves much credit. Okay, someone says, hold on, let me see. Angela Johnson. Well, thank you, Angela. Here's a question from Kimberly Warren. Lei, could the vaccine have impacted fertility? It's possible, but there isn't any studies currently being done in China on that. Um, I think the fertility, even if it's, I don't know. I think that's an interesting thought, but not that dramatic. when you suddenly have, I mean, even if it's vaccine related fertility issue, I think the problem will show up over time. How could you have such drastic decline and massive kindergarten um, closures within 2 years? To me, it's just not normal. I mean, if you see a 5% decline, annually, and then it's normal. This is too dramatic. So that's why I think it's something else. It has to be COVID casualties. Drusilla, do you think if China reaches a trade agreement with the US, it will help China and her people? I wonder, I mean, under the current regime, I don't know if a trade agreement will be reached, or even if it's reached, will they honor it? That's what I question. Without fundamental changes in the regime, I don't understand if a trade agreement means anything at this point, because the CCP has not shown any track record of honoring an agreement. So, okay, so Jeff Ramos, lay off topic. Do you think gold will reach $5,000 soon? It's appreciating at rapid pace. I think it's appreciating as a result of people's panic. But gold's value, I think that's still assuming. I think in college, when I took economics class, I mean, the professor asked us a question: the value of diamond versus the value of water. You know, when there's a natural disaster, when there's a drought, or when there's electricity outage, when you don't have clean water, what can you do with gold or diamond? They're useless. What you need is a gallon of water. So the value of gold is overstated because people panicked. But what's the value of gold? You know, when people, I don't know. I just think it's overstated. So I'm not giving investment advices, but I think it's all. I mean, not just gold, everything else. Precious. I mean, precious stones, um, art. You know, any valuables people are buying. But what's their real value? Not much. S- Psalm, how do I say? Set Zering, Zering Song. Do you think China's economy can recover to where it used to be in the heyday of the 2010s if she steps down and Western friendly powers take over? I do not think so. No, because number one, the loss of population. Number two, um, the the moral fabric of Chinese society is destroyed. When the society, when trust is destroyed in a society, nothing will work. Um, even if you allow the Chinese people to have an election today, I still don't think that many of China's problems will be fixed today, because it's just not just a democratic election process. That's just one of the many requirements. And at this point, it's certainly not the most important requirements for China to be steered onto the right path. I think trust, um, and a good a good set of values. People need to rediscover themselves as Chinese, because the way the Chinese think and behave today is not Chinese. So so no, there's no way China will go back to the heydays of the 2010s. Not just China, the rest of the world cannot return to those days either. The world is a different place. All right. Michael Kaurak. Are you able to obtain hospital birth trend records to corroborate the dramatic decline in birth rates, or is this information too sensitive to be? No, I cannot. I mean, there were at one point the Russians. Did I tell you the Russians were actually compiling population data at the grassroots county level? China has hundreds of counties, and each county government released their local demographic data. So the Russians were manually going through all the grassroots government and add up the population, and they had somewhere like between 500 million. They had, yeah, they had no 300 million, and then but then that data, somebody tried to repeat that process during COVID, but that data is removed from their website. Local Chinese governments no longer publish that data. So I do not think hospital birth data is easily accessible. I do not think so. So, all right. Okay, all right. That's it. Have I? Okay, here's a question from Seek the Truth. Do you have any update on the recall efforts of Taiwan's legislature? Isn't that happening? I know it's very intense. I haven't followed. I think the results hasn't come out. Hasn't come out yet, but it's happening right now. I think they may wrap up this weekend. Yeah, I'll let you know this Saturday for sure. For a Morris family, what does the average Chinese think about the population crash and debt crisis? Are they angry or scared? They do not even know that their country is missing that many people. That's the sad part. And they do not know how much the country is in debt. Or even if they do know the numbers, there's no reference point. I mean, if you don't have a benchmark to compare it with, then the numbers are meaningless. So they're not aware. I mean, some professionals do, but are they allowed to talk about them? I don't think so. All right. Well, there are a lot of conversations. I think I reached the bottom. I may pick one or two questions if I see them. Here's Frank CE. Why China needs 注销证明 from Chinese American living in the US for more than 30 years? I don't know. Yeah, Frank brought up a very good issue, which is alarming. The US government needs to look into this because the Chinese embassy, the Chinese government is asking Chinese nationals living in the US to download an app and then register themselves and provide key information through that app so that the Chinese embassy or consulate can get in touch with them. Now, it caused panic because, first of all, we don't know if the app is safe. That app could be a spyware. I mean, maybe the CCP isn't necessarily interested in your name and address because they have all that information anyway if you're a Chinese national. But what they want is that app on your cell phone so that they can keep track of everything you do. It's a spyware, basically. So that's why I really do not think Chinese nationals should download that app because it's a spyware, right? And then it knows everything that you do on your cell phone. It could even eavesdrop. It could even listen in all your private conversations. I think that's what the person is referring to. And some Zering song. Thank you, Lei. I'm Tibetan, so appreciate your truth tell on the CCP. Well, thank you. Thank you for being there for me. All right. NZ Pridey. Why did the Russians compile the data you just referenced? Why did the Russians? Oh, the Russians do not believe the Chinese statistics at all. The Russians and the Japanese actually have done a lot of research on Chinese demographics. The Russians in 2018 have a very active social media discussion about Chinese population. There were Russian experts and scholars who did studies on this. So the Russians were saying that Chinese population at the time in 2018 was no more than 800 million because they did the study. They added up all the urban population from the local grassroots governments, and it was what, 290 million. And they know that the ratio between urban population to rural population is at the time was 1-to-1. So if you double that, that would be China's total population. And even if you factor in some error, if you factor in a 10% margin of error, so they said that China's population was no more than 800 million. That's the Russians, in the 2018. So they're very well versed in China affairs, and the Japanese too. Baby Vaso. How are Chinese not aware of their population crisis when the men outnumber the women? Oh, this they do. Yeah, this they do. This isn't speculation. Is China not interested in folks from neighboring poor Asian countries? Well, the Chinese are certainly aware of their gender disparity, but they're not necessarily aware of the total loss of population. I mean, they see the empty streets, they see the empty villages, but they assume that the Chinese have moved to other parts of China. So I don't think the Chinese are aware that their population is missing by hundreds of millions. Not yet. Maybe some do. But thank you. Thank you for the great question. Now, even the gender disparity is twisting China in a very strange and odd way. You will think that there are more men than women, and that men have a problem of finding a partner, but the problem is actually the other way around. There are in urban China, at those dating services or whatever matchmaking events, the ratio between women to men is 20-to-1. It's mind-boggling. There are 20 women for one man. So you think what has happened? What has happened to Chinese population? Yeah, and very, very, very strange. Anyways, all right. That's the bottom. I think this, okay, John S. And it goes, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. That's all. Okay, I think I reached the bottom of all the questions. I thank you for joining me. I thank everyone who has given me super stickers, and I'll see you over the weekend. All right, bye. Thank you. Bye.